The first drop finds wood and speaks with a small sound, and then the sky breathes in and lets go. Rain becomes a thread, then a curtain, then a wall that hides the ridge and the city and every familiar line the eye used to trust. The ark holds. Its ribs take the weight like a living thing, and the families inside feel the change before they see it. The floor shifts. The lantern flames lean. Somewhere below the hull, the valley becomes a river, and the river becomes a sea that has never been charted. Noah closes his eyes and listens to the world turning to water. The animals draw closer to their quiet. Hooves find straw. Wings tuck. The sound inside the ark becomes a layered music. Breath, lowing, the rustle of hay, the creak of timber under rising lift. The wives speak in warm whispers and pass water jars hand to hand. Shem and Ham and Japheth move through the corridors with steady steps, counting, combing, checking nuts that hold feed bins and hinge pins that must not fail. They do not shout. They lean in and work with the patience of people who have decided to last. Outside, the rain digs at the earth until paths disappear. The city tries to laugh for a while, then loses the energy for it. Doors close, then float. The last fires go out as water rises around hearthstones. The hill that held the ark becomes an island and vanishes as the horizon lifts. The ocean is no longer a straight line. It is a heaving field, and the ark rides it like a seed in the hand of God. At night, there is no line between sky and water. Sound replaces sight. Waves hammer and withdraw. The ark answers with a deep groan, and then settles back into its long balance. Noah prays without moving his lips. His prayer has no fancy words, only a single truth repeated until it becomes breath. Hold us. Hold what you told us to hold. Hold the world you loved enough to warn. Days find their numbers and do not stop. 40 days of rain, and still the downpour shapes the story. Fatigue takes its seat beside courage and refuses to leave. The families learn the rhythm of the decks. Morning feed, midday water, evening quiet where hands are still and eyes do the work of gratitude. A dove on the upper beam blinks in the dim light and sleeps as if it remembers that wings are patient things. The lioness exhales in a long hum and lays her head near the cub who will not be a cub long if there is a future. Noah keeps a record with marks on a smoothed plank. He does not know why it matters to count when the world outside has lost every number, but the marks feel like trust. He checks the pitch along the seams, runs his palm over joints where water would try to enter if it could. He touches wood with the care of a man greeting an old friend. He remembers the first time he traced the length of the keel in dust and thought it was a strange prayer to build a house for a storm. Now he knows the prayer was not strange. It was specific. There are moments of fear that move through the decks like quick shadows. A sudden jolt when a wave strikes from a new angle. A bucket slipped. A jar cracked. Ham kneels in water, spread thin on a plank, and mops it away with cloth, smiling at his wife as if spill and danger were distant cousins who will not be invited back. Japheth secures a beam with a new wedge and breathes out slow. Shem counts the goats again and kisses the soft line on a kid's head because life is here and it is not theoretical. Noah's wife sits near a small lamp and mends a strap. She does not look at the door. She looks at what her hands can do. When the rain finally stops, it does not announce itself with blue sky. Silence comes first. The ark rides without the percussion of drops on the roof, and the stillness is loud enough to wake the sleeping. They do not cheer. They breathe as if they had been holding breath for longer than breath was meant to be held. Noah rises and touches the beams as he passes, a quiet habit that gives his steps a map. At the roof opening, a thin light presses in. He leans toward it and feels cool air on his face. Water as far as the heart can imagine. No tree breaks the surface. No hill argues. The wind is new, and the sky smells like the inside of a clean jar. God remembers, and remembering is not a thought for him. It is action. A wind runs across the waters and tells them to rest. The deep gives back what it had taken. Spring's close. Skies clear their throats and turn to pale and then to blue in a careful sequence. The ark moves with a gentler roll as the waves flatten. Weeks pass, and somewhere under them, a mountain begins to beckon. One morning the ark kisses rock with a sound like a hand laid on a shoulder, and the long motion of open water shifts to the patient still of a resting hull. They are not on the sea now. They are on the back of a world rising out of its own grief. There is no door flung wide. Waiting continues, because new ground must become ground again, not water pretending. After the space of weeks, Noah opens the hatch a little to let out a raven. The black shape lifts and circles, and rides the air with a readiness that looks like hunger. The bird does not return to enter. It hovers and lands and lifts again, content to live on the edge. Noah waits 7 days and sends a dove. The dove turns in a slow arc and disappears into the pale distance. Evening finds it at the opening again, wings tired, feet empty. Noah cups it in his hands and feels the tremble of a heart that wants a tree. 7 days more, and he sends the dove again. They listen for a sound that will mean something. The wives whisper and glance up toward the light. Shem puts down the tool he was about to pick up and forgets the reason he had picked it up yesterday. When the dove returns this time, the light on its wings is different. It carries a small green thing in its beak, a thin olive leaf, and the world shifts in the chests of everyone who sees it. This is not food. This is a sentence from the future. Noah holds the bird and the leaf and laughs without making a sound. The laughter is in his eyes and in the way his shoulders lift. 7 days again, and he sends the dove a third time. It does not return. Noah looks at the space where it might have been and nods once. The nod is permission. Life can choose life now. The months at rest continue until the earth dries enough to bear the weight of people. And the voice that began this story speaks again. Go out of the ark, you and your wife, your sons and their wives. Bring out every living thing with you, birds and livestock and creeping things. Be fruitful. Multiply on the earth. It is not a new command. It is the first song sung again in a new key. They open the door in a slow, careful way. No one runs. Light pours in and lays itself over straw and tool and hand like a blessing you can see. Noah steps out and feels ground rise to meet his feet. The air is thin and bright on the mountain. Snow lives not far above them, but the sun breathes warm in a pause between winds. Animals emerge and blink. Deer lift their heads and test a small run, the way joy tests at the edge of caution. Birds scatter and collect and speak to the sky as if it were a friend they missed. The lion stands in the sun and does not need to announce anything. The world already knows he is here. Noah does not explore first. He builds an altar. Stones from the mountain's shoulder fit together under his hands, and he lays wood and lights it, and the first smoke rises from the first fire built for thanks in a world washed clean. He places what is clean and good on the fire and steps back and watches the smoke braid the air. He does not tell God what the smoke should mean. He lets the smoke speak, and God breathes in the smell of the offering and makes a decision that is more than a decision. I will never again curse the ground because of humans, for the intention of the heart leans wrong from youth. I will never again strike down every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. The families hear the words and feel weight lift, but the voice is not done. Be fruitful, fill the earth. The fear and the dread of you shall be upon every beast, every bird, every fish. I give them into your hands. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you, as I gave you green plants. Only you shall not eat flesh with its life. That is, its blood. And for your lifeblood, I will require a reckoning. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall his blood be shed, for God made humans in his own image. The word set a fence against the old violence. Life will be guarded by law, and image will be honored by restraint. Then comes a covenant folded in color. God speaks to Noah and to his sons, and to everything living that will come after them. I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of a flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. This is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign. When clouds gather and rain comes, I will see the bow and remember the everlasting covenant between me and every living creature on the earth. The word remember is for us, because God does not forget. But he says it, so we will know that mercy looks like color after rain. The first storm after the flood is small and passes quick, but they still look up when drops begin. A curved line of color climbs the wet sky and makes a bridge from one hill to a ridge far away. Japheth laughs, and his laugh has room for a child in it, because hope is something you can hand to a future you have not met. Ham raises both hands without realizing, and then grins at himself and drops them. Shem watches the colors deepen and thinks about words like law and protection and the weight of image. Noah's wife stands beside the altar stones and feels warm rain on her face, and she does not wipe it away. Noah looks and does not try to count how many colors could live in one promise. He only says thank you with the quiet of a man who has spent a lifetime learning to trust that thank you is enough. The work of living begins again in the slow ways it always begins. Tents lift on new ground. Fields are found and cleared where soil lies deep enough to take a seed. Water is mapped. Pathways are worn between places that matter. They plant and wait. Waiting is not a problem here. Everyone has learned that time has shoulders and will carry what you place on it if you are willing to walk at the pace of things that grow. The first sprouts push through, and the family stands over them, as if watching small miracles rise to take their roles. Later, Noah plants a vineyard. It takes years for vines to teach wood how to hold sweetness. The patience of that project suits him. He tends the rows with hands that still remember the curve of beams and the smell of pitch. He watches leaves turn and sear, then sleep and wake, and he smiles at how the world keeps its small covenants while the big covenant arcs over it like a roof. In the season when grapes finally hold the sun in their skins, he harvests and presses and tastes and finds that joy can be strong in the mouth. He drinks more than is wise, and weariness that has lived quiet in his bones for so long steps forward and lays him down in his tent. The tent is a simple square of cloth and rope, but the moment inside is complicated, because people are complicated even after rain has reset the lines on the map. Ham comes upon his father asleep and uncovered. The quickness in him that looks for edges looks for a story here. He turns away and goes out to tell, and telling becomes its own kind of uncovering. Shem and Japheth hear and choose differently. They take a garment between them, enter backward, and lay it over their father without looking. There is a new world here, but old choices still matter. Honor is a door that can be opened or shut. When Noah wakes and learns the thing that happened when he slept, he speaks a hard word that will echo for generations. He names the shame and sets a boundary around it. His speech lands on the branch of family that had used sight to make a joke of dignity. The story is not tidy here, and Scripture does not polish it for us. The flood did not wash away the need for mercy or wisdom. It only cleared ground so those things could be seen again. The new covenant lives over a world where people still must pick how they will carry the image they wear. Seasons bend into each other as they do when nothing prevents them. The family grows and sends out children who build and sing and trade and argue and forgive and forget and remember the rainbow after rain when remembering is needed. Animals fill valleys with tracks again. Birds revise the sky with their lines. Rivers take off their flood names and put their old names back on. The ark sits on the mountain and becomes the color of rock and weather. It looks like a story that did its work, which is the best kind of story. Sometimes at evening, Noah climbs a slope above the tents and sits where he can see long. The mountain shoulder keeps its cool, even when the plain burns white with day. He watches shadows move as the sun tilts, and he hears in his mind the sound of the first drop on wood, and the sound of the dove's wings, and the small snap a twig makes when crushed under the first foot of a stag that will live to see a dozen rains. He prays the kind of prayer that needs only 3 words. Thank you. Help. Stay. Once a traveler stops by the tents and asks for the story because travelers do that when the road has been long and the fire is good. Noah tells it without heavy voice. He says the world was sick and God sent a rescue that looked like a boat. He says warning is not cruelty when the warning is aimed at saving. He says obedience is a door you open with your hands, not a sign you wave. The traveler nods like a man trying to place faces he has seen somewhere else. And Noah chuckles and says he does not mind if the man forgets his face. He wants him to remember the bow in the sky. That is the point. The traveler leaves with food and a cloth, and a new silence sitting beside him, where fear used to sit. Thunder comes some weeks later, when the family turns their faces up as a habit. Rain begins gentle. No one runs for cover. The children of the sons stand in the open with their mouths open to taste what the sky is giving, and they laugh because water from above is sweet when it is not the end of everything. The rainbow comes, and it is not a shy thing. It is full and bright, and stretches its arm from one ridge to another. Noah smiles and nods, and even now his nod is still a prayer. You could say the story teaches that judgment and mercy are neighbors who share a fence. You could say it tells us that new beginnings are not clean floors, but swept rooms with the faint lines of old footprints still visible if the light is right. You could say it is about a man who trusted a voice long enough to become a shelter, and in doing so, he learned that the voice was always the shelter, and always will be. All of that is true, but what stays with you is the quiet scene where a dove brings back a small green leaf and hands it to a world that had forgotten what green even looked like. If you are listening right now from a place where the sky has been a hard ceiling, hear this. The waters do not hold the last word. The bow belongs to the God who remembers. He remembers mercy when clouds gather. He remembers you when the room feels small and your hands are tired of building the same faithful thing every day. He remembers the promise he set, not only above the earth, but inside it, in the way seeds split to become more than they were, in the way hearts can turn and become soft again. There will be storms. There will also be olive leaves. Here is a simple way to walk this week. Keep your hands on what keeps life alive. Speak gently to the creatures you have been given to care for, whether they stand on 4 feet or sit across a small table from you. Refuse the old violence that tells you power is permission. Choose the difficult honor of covering someone's shame instead of making a story out of it. When you see clouds gather, remember the colors that will follow. When mockery rises, remember the ark did not answer with words. It answered with endurance. You may not be asked to build a boat large enough to carry a future on its back. You may only be asked to build a single day with care, and that will be enough. In a world that often measures value by noise and speed, Noah teaches a slower arithmetic. Obedience plus time equals shelter. Mercy plus memory equals peace. And one line of hope remains. The God who set the bow in clouds keeps covenant in quiet ways, and even after the hardest rain, he is still riding light across the sky.